Okay, well, again, good morning. My name is Terry Kalm. I'm the president of Sunbelt Resales. If some of you guys have been around in the system for a while, you guys may have seen me. I did come to one of your conventions. How long ago was it, Michael? 5 or 6 years ago down in Florida? We're going to talk a little bit about the preparation of getting your business ready to sell. I mean, everybody who owns a franchise business at some point in time is going to exit their business, and whether that exit for you is a year or two away or still 10 or 15, 20 years away. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today, I think it makes a difference in your business now, and it's going to make a difference when you get to that point, that inevitable point of transition. So we're going to talk about some of those preparation things. We're also going to talk about some valuation methodologies and how your business is looked at by prospective buyers and also by banks who may be financing the transaction, for a prospective buyer. I'm going to give you an update on the market and talk about some of the buyer profiles that we're seeing in the market today. And then we're going to give you some tips on maximizing the value of your business. And again, the do's and don'ts and the tips that we're going to give you at the end of this presentation, they're valid whether you're looking at getting out now or 20 years from now, whether you're thinking about using a business broker or trying to do it on your own. It's just going to be some straightforward, here's some things you should and shouldn't do, and then at the end I'll give you a 1-minute commercial on how Sunbelt can help and how we've helped other Sparkle Wash members transition. So we'll move on to the next slide. And so the first step of any kind of succession plan begins on you as the owner figuring out what's your planning or what's your succession plan look like. For many small business owners in this country, small business owners look at family, possible family members taking over the business. Maybe a key employee would be a good buyer. Some think about just closing it down. They wind their business down. And I have the word yuck written after that because I will tell you that, if that is the strategy you're thinking about, you will not maximize the value of your business doing that way. Obviously, that's not favorable for Sparkle Wash as a franchise system. And of course, it's not good for Sunbelt because our core business is helping people buy and sell existing businesses. So, but if you do think about going to the market with your business and doing a third-party sale, that of course is what Sunbelt does. We help people buy and sell existing businesses every day. The point of this slide is, guys, it's really up to you to determine what is the right path for you. Only you can determine how you want to leave the business. Anyways, if the third-party sale is your choice, it's important to understand a couple things. It's important to understand the value of your business now, and then what's going to drive that value in the buyer's eyes. What are they going to look at, and how are they going to value your business? So when it comes to valuation of your business, I will be the first to admit there's many different ways to skin that cat. There's lots of different valuation methodologies out there, and each methodology has pros and cons to it. Some of the methodologies that are more common in small business methodology are asset-based, maybe a formula based on gross sales. There's always comparisons. This other Sparkle Wash franchisee had similar sales and they sold their business for this. But there's also a valuation methodology that's based on what we call owner benefit or seller's discretionary earnings. And that methodology is the methodology that we really, as business brokers, like to first look at with every business we look at to help sell. Because if the owner benefit is good, if there's good cash flow in the business, this methodology tends to kind of maximize the value of the business. So brokers prefer the seller's discretionary earnings method, but all these methods are available and they can all be utilized to look and to try to figure out what is the best price for your business. For many years in the small business market of reselling businesses sold as a function of gross sales. And I work with over 100 different franchise systems besides Sparkle Wash on a national basis, and I will tell you that every industry has a formula that says, hey, your business is worth X, it's worth 30% of annual sales, it's worth 3 months of revenue, it's worth 100% of sales, whatever that may be. The problem with a gross sales methodology is this: it just doesn't tell the entire story of the business. And what I mean by that is, if you say, Michael and I both have a Sparkle Wash franchise, and we both have the same gross sales number. But if Michael's able to, take home, a cash flow of $200,000, and my business is only going to take home $50,000, which one is going to be more apt to get offers from buyers? Which ones are buyers going to gravitate toward, right? Because I will tell you that when a buyer of a business comes into a Sunbelt business brokerage office, or any business broker office for that matter, and they say, hey, listen, I want to change my life, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to take my future into my own hands, and we start, finding out, showing them businesses that we think match their skill sets and their priorities and their lifestyle, the very next question out of their mouth about that business is, how much money is it going to make me? So it's their single biggest concern. The cash flow has to be there for them in order to live the lifestyle they want to live. And your concern, as you get to the point where you want to sell your business, is how much is a bank going to finance to a buyer to purchase my business? So that's why we really tend to gravitate toward getting away from gross sales functions and really look at cash flow based functions of valuation. So here's kind of where the rubber meets the road when it comes to valuation. If any small business owner has little or no cash flow in their business, then the sales price is typically going to be determined by your assets, your physical assets. One of which, of course, of your assets is the fact that you have a franchise license through a good franchisor. But if you have a profitable business, if you have cash flow for the owner, then those businesses typically can sell for much more than assets by using other valuation methodologies, including cash flow based methodologies. So when we look at the owner benefit, or the SDE, seller's discretionary earnings method, the thing that is involved in figuring out what the true owner benefit is doing a recast of the financials. We realize, as small business owners ourselves, that most business owners try to mitigate their bottom line profits, to mitigate their burdens to Uncle Sam every April. So what we need to do is we need to go through the expense lines and figure out, are there some expenses in your business that really are a true benefit to the owner and not so much a true business expense. So we're going to calculate to the dollar everything that you take out as benefit of the business. So that starts with the bottom line profits, but then we add back salary, we add back non-cash expenses like depreciation and amortization, we add back interest expenses, and then we add back any other expenses that are a little bit more personal in nature, like if you pay your healthcare insurance through your business, or your car insurance through your business, or your daughter's college tuition through your business. We're not the IRS, we're not judging, we just want to figure out what the true benefit of the business is. So we're gonna figure out to the penny or to the dollar, what is the true owner benefit or seller's discretionary earnings that your business is spinning off, and we're gonna look at that analysis for the last 3 years, and then we're gonna determine what that true SDE of your business is. And once we have that, we're gonna apply a multiple to that number to come up with the price for the business. Now, multiples vary. They vary by company, they vary by industry, they vary by market, and a host of other factors, and we're going to dive into some of those other factors here in a couple slides. But for service-based businesses, usually the multiples are somewhere between 2 to 2.5 times that seller's discretionary earnings number for a sales price, okay? And I'll caution you guys right away, I hate putting this thing in the slide about the range, because I will tell you that service businesses have sold for far less than 2 times multiples, and service businesses have sold for far more than 2.5 multiples. But the majority of the businesses in the service sector usually fall into that category. Higher performing businesses, going to sell for more. Businesses that have more of the strong attributes that we're looking for, that we're going to talk about here in a minute, going to sell for more. So, but the 2 to 2.5 is just a good estimation. It's a good range. But again, we've seen that vary highly based on the individual business being sold, and it's going to vary because on the individual business being sold, because there are other facets of your business that's going to determine how high that multiple goes. And I want to really reiterate this point: the price of your business is not just a function of the financial data. Yes, the financial data drives the bus; it's the most important part. But the value of your business is also going to vary on a host of other factors that buyers are going to look at in your business. And those factors are common only to your individual business, right? So they're going to look at your assets. They're going to look at your inventory. They're going to look at your position in your own market. And they're going to look at a bunch of other factors that are either going to be categorized as growth factors or risk factors. And it goes without saying that, the more growth factors you can have in your business, the better the price and the multiple is going to be. The more risk factors that a buyer sees in your business, they're going to want to go ahead and offer lower money for the business. So what kind of things are we talking about that can be categorized as growth and risk factors? Well, this slide that's on the screen now, it's not meant to be an end-all list, but it just kind of gives you some of the examples of some of the things that buyers are going to look at. Number one, they're going to look at the overall industry. Is it a good industry? Is it growing? Is there growth opportunities within the industry? They're going to look at the product that you offer, and is there a high barrier to entry or not? They're going to look at your brand, and this is a part where, again, being part of a good franchise system adds value to your franchise when you go to sell it. They're going to look at to see if there's any intellectual property or patents. They're also going to look at the trend of your revenues and your earnings. I'll state it this way: if you're coming off of 3 of the best years you ever had in business and you're deciding to sell, you have a higher probability that you're going to maximize the value of your business. If you're coming off 3 very down years and you try to sell, you still may be able to sell your business, but you're not going to get the top price for your business. So they're going to look at the trend and which way the business is going. And obviously, if it's going in the right direction, the buyers will pay more, banks will loan more on that. They're also going to look at your customer diversity, and for you guys, I think in many cases this is another good attribute that you guys have. Buyers don't want to buy businesses where 50% of the revenue is coming from one customer, because their fear is when they buy that business, that customer may leave. So they want to see a good mix of customers and a low percentage of the top customer only brings 3% or 5% of the revenue to the business. So the more customer diversity you have, the more growth opportunities there are, the less risk there is. Today's buyers also more than ever, they're looking for a business that they can work on and not necessarily in. Most of the people that are buying franchise businesses today, they understand they're going to be working the business, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. That's given. They know that. But what they're hoping to do is they don't want to be the one out actually doing the work. They want to be the ones who's strategizing, who's maybe doing sales, who's doing the marketing, who's doing the stuff that's going to drive the business. They don't want to be the laborer doing the work. So if you have a team in place, that's very much more attractive to today's buyers than if you are the one-man band doing it all yourself. Now again, I don't want to misstate this. If you're a one-man band, there's buyers for that as well. But again, the buyers that are paying the best prices, they're looking for enterprises. They're looking for businesses that they can work on, not necessarily in. They're also looking for good financials. I have the word audited on the screen. They don't necessarily have to be audited financials, but they got to be good, clean books. They want to see the last 3 years of performance, and they want to see it typically monthly. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about the financials and what they look like here in a little bit. So, if all of those things are going in the right direction and you have all of those things available, you have a better opportunity to maximize value. But the converse is also true. If your industry is going down, if you have inconsistent revenues and earnings, if the business is heavily dependent on the owner, if you're selling just on price, if you have low customer repeat factors, high customer concentration, meaning most of your business comes from 1 or 2 customers, buyers are going to look at those attributes of your business and they're going to say, wow, there's some risk in this business, and that's going to affect the price they want to pay. So the summary of that previous slide is simply this: buyers are looking to buy businesses that have as many as growth factors as possible and as few risk factors as possible. So it's inherent for you guys to try to build your business to have those factors, because that's going to enable you to attract more buyers and sell your business for more money. And really, given what's going to happen here in the future resales market, the ability to attract buyers to your business is going to become critical. I've been talking about the change that we're going to see here in the marketplace. Since I started in this position 10 years or 16 years ago, and really for the last 10 years, I've been beating this drum very loudly, because there's 78 million baby boomers out there, and they're all going to be retiring soon. And those 78 million baby boomers own 2.5 million small businesses. So the market is going to change, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But when you decide to go to sell your business, I think it's really important that you kind of look at two external factors outside of your business. One is the general resales market. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the other is the economy, because the economy also is going to drive how the business is being sold. And if you want an example of this, just look back to 2008. We had a bunch of people that we spoke to back in 2007 who said to us, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to sell. I think I'm going to hang on for 1 or 2 more years." Well, when the recession happened in 2008, their 2 year or 1 year plan became probably a 5 or 6 year plan, because as the business went down, and most industries did, so their profits went down, their sales went down, the value of their business went down. But what also happened with the economy was buyers completely dried up. Buyers used their 401ks and their home equity to purchase businesses as collateral. So when their 401k went down and took a beating on the recession, when their property value went down, and they just got nervous. Buyers just said, "Wow, this is just not a good time for us to do this." So buyers stopped buying. Sellers didn't want to sell because their value was down. And then the third wheel of that spoke was or third spoke of the wheel was banks really stopped lending. They just weren't giving away money back then. So the economy matters, and for owners back in 2007 who said 1 more year, well, like I said, they probably couldn't sell their business for another 3 or 4 years or longer to get the price that they wanted to, because that recession was so deep. And look, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know what the next correction, recession is going to look like. We don't know how severe it's going to be, and we don't know when it's going to happen. Economists have been predicting the next recession for a couple of years now, and there's still many economists that think it's going to happen in the next 18 months. We don't know when that's going to happen. But I will just say this: if you are thinking about leaving in the next year or so, there may be a sense of urgency for you to do it sooner than later, because right now the market is fantastic. And again, with the economy still humming along, and even though interest rates are kind of ratcheting up a little bit, they're still at a decent rate. Banks are lending at record levels right now, and there's a lot of buyers still right now. So the market has been fantastic, and I'll give you a little bit more about that in a second. So there's a little sense of urgency from an economic standpoint. But really, the upcoming supply-demand issue may be even more important than the economy to you guys, especially if you're thinking about getting out in the next 5 to 10 years. So here's the deal. From the market standpoint, 2018 was the single largest resale year ever in the history of this country. The most active small business transactions, okay? And that's great news for sellers. 2018 beat the record set in 2017, which beat the record set in 2016. So we've had this bull market on resales really for the last 3 years. And 2019 is expected to continue. We're seeing signs that this thing is just not slowing down right now. And the nice thing is the price paid for small businesses in 2018 was the highest price on an average basis in over a decade. So not only are we seeing record number of transactions being done, we're seeing record prices being paid for, or at least high prices for the last 10 years. And again, as I mentioned, bank financing has been prevalent. So we're getting a lot of sellers are being able to cash out, or mostly cash out at sale. And that's because right now we have a really good market, supply and demand are in harmony. But as I mentioned, that is going to change. As those 78 million baby boomers who own about 2 million or 2.5 million small privately held businesses all start transitioning out of their businesses, a lot of them are going to go to the third market. I mean, you're going to have, if you go back to one of our earlier slides, you're going to have some of those baby boomers are going to sell to family, sell it to key employees. Some are just going to close down. The majority are going to go to the market. So over the next 2 to 15 years, it's estimated that by 2026, analysts have said that we will have more businesses on the market than ever at any other time in our history. Okay, so we're going to see this large increase of the number of businesses for sale that's going to come down the pike here in the next 5 to 10 years, and we've already started to see that. I mean, we have record number of listings right now in many of our offices because the boomers are starting to go, and it's just going to continue to grow. And so for you guys as business owners right now, who may be thinking about selling in the next 5 to 10 years, that's not particularly good news. Because as the market's going to shift away from the seller's market, it's going to shift to a buyer's market. And what that means is buyers just are going to become ultra picky because they're going to have choices. They're going to have lots of options. So it's imperative really for small business owners to start planning their exit now, to start building a business that's going to attract buyers no matter what the market looks like, no matter what the economy looks like. That's the only way you're going to get your business sold. And really, that's the reason that Michael and I are doing this presentation today. We want to help you build a sellable business, regardless of when you're ready to exit. And having a business that buyers are going to find desirable will help you in a very crowded market. And understand, guys, look, the majority of the businesses that are going to be out there for sale, number one, there'll be a fair number of franchises, but the majority won't be a franchise business, so they won't have that advantage. And I really think selling a resale, having a franchise attached to it, is makes it a lot easier to sell. But it also, most of those owners aren't getting this type of education. They're not getting these kind of hey, here's some of the things you should be looking at. So if you're able to take a couple things away from today's presentation and incorporate them into your business today, it's just going to put you in a much better position when you decide it's time to go. So that's the reason we wanted kind of to do this presentation today, is just to have you open your eyes a little bit to say, hey, if the end is near, and it is for all of us, but some longer than others, it's never too early to start looking at the end and to maybe start building a business that's going to be very attractive to buyers regardless of what the economy looks like and regardless of what the supply and demand looks like. So again, start early or start now. It's never too early. Again, buyers are going to look back at your business 3 years. So if you're not doing good monthly financial statements, if you don't have good year-end statements, if you're not paying your taxes on time, now's the time to start getting all that in order. Okay. By the way, I had a guy call me just last week, another franchise, and he just told me on the phone. He said, "I haven't paid my taxes in 6 years," and I just told him, "We can't sell your business. No one's going to buy a business that has that kind of liability standing outside of it." So, you're going to want to make sure that you're all caught up on your taxes, that you have good financials. Buyers and banks are going to look at back 3 years when evaluating a business like that. And again, having good, clean, organized books, it's going to make or break a deal. It really does. So, make sure your books are in order. Make sure your taxes are clean and paid. Buyers, again, want a business with as many growth factors as possible. So, start thinking about some of those things and try to have as many positive attributes in your business as possible that buyers are going to find attractive, because that's going to help you attract buyers and get that right price. Typically, what we say to people is, a 1 year from when you're ready to sell, you should be talking to a professional like myself or a local business broker to make sure that we're doing all the right things. And then when you go to market, you're looking at about a 6 to 9 month sales cycle to sell your business. Okay, so it's never too early to start thinking about it. But then when you're ready to go, it's probably going to be you want to start preparing really in advance, at least a year or two, and then expect a 6 to 9 month sales cycle when you put your business on the market. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, hey, who are these buyers? And for you guys specific, people might call me and go, is anybody really looking to buy a power washing company? And I will say that while people might not wake up this morning and go, today's the day I'm going to go change my life and buy a power washing company. What people do say though is people say, today's the day I'm going to change my life. Today's the day I'm going to become an entrepreneur. And today's the day I want to take my future in my own hands. And they will come into a business broker office and they will tell us what they want in a lifestyle. They'll tell us what their skill sets are, what their passions are, but they're also going to tell us, hey, here's what I want to do. And they're going to say, this is the life I want to live, this is the kind of money I want to make, etc. Okay? And I will tell you guys this, and having been in this chair for 16 years, it is less about the industry that the business is in, and it's more about matching somebody up with the lifestyle that business affords them, the opportunity affords them, and meeting their own objectives. And let me give you a couple examples of recent buyers of service business industries. Buyer one is someone what I would call a human reasons buyer. He had no service background. He was in sales. He was a traveling salesman, and his sales background was in agricultural and distribution sales. Okay. In both of his last two roles over the last 20 plus years, his companies had been acquired. He was completely downsized one time, and the other time he was basically reassigned to a different role within his company. And he hated that. He also realized that his kids were getting older and he was spending more and more time on the road. So when he came into us, he didn't even mention an industry. He said, here's what I want. I need to make X amount of dollars, but I want a business that's close to my home. I want to be home almost every night for dinner with my kids. I don't want to be doing overnight travel anymore. And I want to do something different. I've been in sales and agricultural sales my entire life. I'm looking for a new challenge. I want to learn a new skill, okay? So when he bought his service business, it was totally different industry. It was totally something new for him, and that's what he wanted, okay? Buyer two was what we call a financial buyer. Again, no service background. This guy had made a ton of money in real estate development and things like that. He was very successful. He had money to invest. And he said, look, the market scares me to death right now. And he said, banks aren't paying me any interest. And he felt that his best way to acquire wealth was to buy small businesses. And not so much be the owner operator them. He was going to be more of the money guy, but he was going to hire people to basically be the general manager for the business. His buy-in motivation for the service business he bought, he said, I want a business that has a strong presence in the market. He looked at all their Google reviews and all their social media presence. And he said, there has to be a good team in place, because he wanted to work on the business, not in the business. And he had to see that there was a potential to buy a business. Now, the service business that we ended up selling this gentleman down in South Florida, 6 months after we had done that, he came back to us and said, okay, find me another one just like it. I want to continue to grow that empire. You want to become a multi-unit franchisee at that point in time. So my point again, guys, is, once the lifestyle's a fit for the business, then it is, and once the cash flow's there, the industry is secondary. So yeah, we might not have a bunch of people that wake up this morning and say, hey, today is the day I want to go buy a power or pressure washing company. But we do have a bunch of people that are still coming in and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And the statistic that I will tell you is 6 out of every 7 businesses that Sunbelt sells, those buyers bought a business different than the original business they inquired upon. So they'll see an advertisement that we'll run for a business, and they'll say, oh, that sounds interesting, and they'll call on it, and then we come in and they sit down with us and we start talking about, hey, what's your lifestyle? What do you want to do? What's your objectives? We recognize that the business they originally called in is not a good fit for them. But when we show them opportunities that meet that lifestyle and meet their skill set and their passions, again, the industry becomes secondary. So it's about the lifestyle. It's also about the cash flow. And remember, when you guys price your business, it's important to understand, if someone's going to take a loan out to buy your business, the price that you put on your business has to satisfy at least 2 of the three bullet points on the screen right now. Number 1, it has to allow the owner to service the debt on a monthly basis to the bank, and also still generate a salary. And then if there really is a bank loan, usually the bank wants to see a small return of investment on top of that, okay? So I'd love to tell everybody in this call, hey, I'll get you $2 million for your business, even if your cash flow is only $50,000, right? And maybe we find a buyer that says, okay, I'll look at that. But when they go to the bank's going to be the double check. And the bank's going to go, you know what? There's no way you can purchase that business for that price, because it's not going to finance. We're not going to get paid. So there's always a good double check, and that is, to run just a reverse amortization. If you think your business is worth X amount of dollars, figure out what the cash flow is, and then figure out what a debt service payment's going to look like if someone's going to borrow money to buy your business, and make sure there's enough money left for the owner to also have a salary. That's the first thing we do. And a lot of our brokers, they'll go to a bank first. They'll take a business that we list, and they'll go to the bank and say, how much will you lend on this business? Because we want to know that on the front end. Some other considerations regarding selling your business is whether or not you want to sell or finance. Okay, seller financing is is something that some sellers are adamant they don't want to do. There's other sellers that will only sell their business if they can sell or finance, because they know that there's positive attributes attached to it. Okay, I will say, if you offer your business in some for some form of seller financing, it makes the business more attractive. Buyers love that. Buyers love it for 2 reasons. Number 1 is They typically don't have to go through the loan process with a bank. And number two is when the seller is saying, hey, I'm willing to stay in the game for a while because I believe in this business, that sends a message to the buyer. Hey, yeah, he's putting his money where his mouth is, or she's putting his money where her mouth is. She believes in the business, and she's willing to finance me as the buyer, so that's great. Seller financing also has other advantages as well. Number one is we can typically ask for a higher price because when we do your recast of your financials, and let's say you're paying your health insurance and your car insurance and your daughter's college tuition through the business, okay? We're going to come up with that SDE number. The bank, when they do a recast of your financials, they don't like to count that kind of stuff. They look at specifically your bottom line profits, and they look at how much you paid yourself from a salary standpoint, and they might look at some of the non-cash expenses like depreciation and amortization, but they don't count those other expenses. So they're typically going to be lower on what they're willing to finance than what we think the business is worth. So seller financing can bridge that gap and get us a higher price. Seller financing also has potential tax savings. I'm not a CPA, I don't give tax advice, but I've had plenty of sellers tell me over the years that taking a lump sum payment at close versus taking payments over time has saved them considerable dollars on the taxes by taking the payments. So when you spread out that tax liability, it's usually less liability. So you're going to save some money from a tax standpoint. It's also an income source. We don't ask any of our sellers to finance for free. We put a competitive interest rate on there. Right now we're getting about 6.5 or 7%. So you're going to get a lot more money because you're going to earn interest on the sale of the transaction as well. Seller financing does have a risk. I think you guys all know what that is, right? That someone doesn't pay you or they run the business into the ground type of thing. But for the most part, seller financing has a lot of advantages. At the end of the day, whether you want to seller finance is completely up to you. You have to make that call. But if you're open to it, it can really lead to a higher price and more money in your pocket at the end of the day. So it's something I think every buyer or every seller should at least consider looking into, is whether or not you want to seller finance. Okay, so for the last part of the presentation here, I'm just going to go over some do's and don'ts. Again, this is information that's been gleaned in our 40 years of selling businesses. This is information that is applicable whether you're thinking about selling your business now or 10 years from now. Whether you're going to use a business broker or not. Just some good, solid advice to follow when you get to the point where you're going to sell your business. The number one is market confidentially. I'm hoping that there's nobody on the call today who thinks the way to sell the business is the way to sell your house. And that is by putting a sign up and maybe holding an open house and have people come and look at it. There is a time to tell your customers, your vendors, and your employees when you're going to sell your business. And trust me, it's not when you list your business for sale. It's when you have a buyer that's buying your business, okay? And the case study that I have listed here is this landscape business in Minnesota. This happened about 5 years ago. This lady came to us and said she wanted to sell her business, and we signed her up on a listing. And we mentioned to her as she was leaving that, hey, we want to make sure we keep this confidential. All of our marketing is going to be blind profile. And she said, well, I'm going to tell my manager. And we said, no, don't tell your manager. There's nothing to tell your manager at this point in time. And she said, well, wait a second. This guy has been with me since day one. This guy is one of the reasons that I'm successful, and I feel I owe it to him to let him know that I'm putting my business up for sale. We said, we don't think you owe him that at all. But she didn't listen, and she went ahead and told the manager that she'd put her business up for sale. 6 months went by. We still had not found a buyer for her business. But what had happened in that 6-month period is not only did she lose her manager, he resigned, but he also started a competing landscape firm. So again, until you sit across the table and somebody hands you that big fat check and you hand them the keys, whose business is it? It's your business. And you're going to want your employees, your customers, and vendors to continue to do all the things they've all done for you to make you successful up to this point. And the only way you do that is by not letting them know you're selling your business. It's unfortunate in this day and age, but it's still very true that when people hear a business is for sale, they tend to think the worst. It still has a negative connotation. Consumers think the business is in trouble, that there's a problem with the business, that's why they're selling. But worse is employees. Employees fear for their jobs, and so they may freshen up their resumes, they may just go ahead and quit and take another job, or they could be even worse. They could stay and become completely apathetic. Stop doing the little things, stop going the extra mile for you, stop giving great service. And that's going to hurt your business. And again, if the business hasn't sold yet, it's still your business. So I realize that there are people that you may have in your business that have been loyal to you, and you feel you want to be loyal to them. You're not being disloyal by telling them by not telling them your business is for sale. You're actually protecting them from a lot of gray hairs and a lot of unnecessary worry. Because remember this, guys. Employees may think, oh my gosh, if the new owner comes in, I have a job. They're going to fire me. They're not going to want me. When we're selling small businesses in this, any kind of small business that has employees, one of the biggest attributes to that business is the employees. It's the human capital part of it. And most buyers, especially buyers that don't have any industry experience, most buyers are going to want to keep those employees. But the employees don't know that, and they don't think that way. So you have to market it confidentially. If you guys went on to our national website, sunbeltnetwork.com, you'd see right now we have over 4,500 businesses listed for sale. If you looked at most of those ads, 95% of those ads, you would see what I mean by blind profile ads. It does not mention the name of the business. It mentions a vague description of what the business does. It typically does not mention the city in which the business is, unless it's a very large city. It mentions a general locality. So for example, if I was selling my Sparkle Wash franchisee in my hometown of Woodbury, Minnesota, I would say a national franchise service business in the greater Twin Cities market. I'm giving people a little bit of information about what the business is and the general location without giving away what the business actually is, which business is for sale. And we do that also because we want the sellers or the buyers to pick up the phone and call us. And that gives us a chance then to get them into our office, meet with them face to face, figure out what their passions, their skill sets, their lifestyle goals are, and then match them up with the right business. So market confidentially. It's going to save you a lot of money now, and it's going to save you a lot of headaches down the road. Price it right. We kind of talked about pricing a little bit again. It's very difficult to do this as an owner of the business because look, I get it. Every business owner is going to have a higher opinion of value on their business than most buyers are going to have. Because it's your blood, it's your sweat, it's your tears, it was your investment capital, you took the risk. The business is always going to mean more to you, okay? Unfortunately, buyers and banks don't care. What they care about is what's the latest performance. How is the business doing, okay? So when you go to price your business, you need to take that objective viewpoint to it. And one of the things I ask people to say is, hey, if you were looking at a business in this industry to buy yourself, would you buy it for this price? So try to look at it and make sure you're pricing it right. Don't let internal problems fester. Look, if you go back to when you guys bought into Sparkle Wash, I got to believe there was a little bit of apprehension, the weeks leading up before you pulled the trigger and signed the franchise agreement. Every buyer has apprehension. Every buyer is nervous. Okay, as buyers are doing due diligence on your business, the more skeletons in the closet they're finding, the more red flags they're putting up in their brain of why they shouldn't do this business. So it's important that when you go to put your business on the market, you just got to have it as clean as possible with as little skeletons in the closet as possible. So if you got old inventory, if you got beat up vans, if you got things that are going to turn off a buyer, think about getting those things straightened out before you go to market. Real estate sales and small business sales aren't very analogous at all. But the one place where they are comparable is, what do you do before you sell your house, before you put your house up for sale? You splash a fresh coat of paint on it, maybe replace some carpet, trim up the bushes and the shrubs, right? I mean, give it some curb appeal and make it look as nice as possible. Got to do the same thing with your business, both inside and out. One of the hardest things for us owners of businesses to do is to walk into our business and say, today I'm walking in and I'm going to take off my owner hat and I'm going to put on, I'm a buyer of this business hat. And really try to objectively look at your business from that point of view for a day or two. And if you're able to do that, I'm going to guarantee you're going to find one or two things that a buyer probably wouldn't like. And my point is, fix it now. Because even if you're not going to market yet, I guarantee those little things are probably costing you business in some way, shape, or form or another. So if you fix it now, it's going to lead to higher sales, higher profits now, and it's going to lead to a higher sales price down the road and less buyer apprehension. So try to be objective at in looking at your business, and try to find those problems and kill them now, because buyers don't like red flags, and too many red flags kill deals. Understand financing option. We talked about seller financing and bank financing a little bit. Again, you don't have to seller finance. Some brokers will tell you you have to. We tell owners to really consider it, because we think it's in their best interest. But at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with it, you're not comfortable with it. But if you're open to seller financing, all the advantages that we talked about are real. You're going to, I think, earn more money, and you're going to get more buyers involved. Be prepared to discuss Sparkle Wash and how they help the business. Look, you guys are part of a franchise system, and there are really some really positive benefits that a franchisor provides you. One is education. You guys have your national conference every year. You guys get webinars like this one. You got to be able to talk about those kind of things to buyers. Typically, the buyers are going to look at your business. They may have never been exposed to a franchise system before. And if all they know about franchising is, I have to pay a royalty, they're going to look at that as a negative. Come prepared to counteract that and say, look, yeah, there's a royalty here, and here's what we get for that royalty. We get X, Y, and Z, okay? So be prepared to have those discussions with them, because the buyers don't know those things. So you have to talk about the positives that you get there. Also, don't be overly boastful or negative. You guys would be shocked to know this following statistic, but it's true. Sellers inadvertently kill deals more often than attorneys and accountants do. And they don't mean to do it. But there are ways to say things that will, that are truthful, that will help people understand what your business is, versus persuade them not to buy your business. Let me give you an example, because this happened to me in a meeting one time. I was with a buyer and a seller, and the seller was telling the buyer about the things that they do in the business on a daily basis. And they ended that little portion of the meeting by saying to the buyer, and you know what, Mr. Buyer, I just don't think you can do what I do in this business. Well, guess what? That buyer didn't give that seller a chance to prove them right or wrong. They said, okay, I'm done. So it's very important that you don't lie to that you don't lie to buyers, that you tell the truth. But don't be overly boastful. Don't be overly negative. Look, people know that you work a lot of hours. You don't have to lead. You don't have to lead with that. Those type of things. So just be careful on how you word things, and make sure that you're conscious of what you're saying to potential buyers of your business. Be available to help transition and train the new owner. I will tell you, the day you get those keys handed over to somebody else and you get that big fat check, that won't be the last day you work with them. Okay. Every buyer is going to want a transition plan with you as the seller, and that transition plan is going to be based really on what the buyer wants. I will tell you that I just completed a deal in a similar industry to you guys, and that buyer had no industry experience in that industry, and that buyer basically gave a year contract to the seller to stay in the business with them for 1 whole year. Okay, most buyers are going to ask for at least a 30 to 60 day transition period with a new owner, and some will go longer than that. And like I said, this last one, we did a year employment contract as part of the deal. So it's not the last day you're going to work in the business for sure, but how long you stay in really will be specific to the buyer that's buying your business. Sprint to the finish. I've used this case study now, guys, for about 10 years. It happened very early in my career when I was just getting started in this position, but it's still probably the most germane thing. And look, if you only remember one or two things from my talk today, I think this one is probably one of those things to remember. This was an Ace Hardware seller in Northern California. At the time when I was working with Ace, I was doing 2 conventions a year with them. So I was seeing the Ace groups every 6 months. And this gentleman would actually come to my booth. I had a booth at their vendor fair every 6 months, and he would sit down in my booth with me. He was a really nice guy. He was in his 70s. And he'd been an Ace retailer for over 35 years. And he would admit, he said, man, I'm starting to get tired. But he had a problem. His problem was his business was absolutely on fire. He had just found his stride finally. He was doing millions of dollars in revenue. He was making $500,000 in profit every year. He had bought his own building now. So he had an asset there, and he just said, Terry said, I know I'm getting tired, but I just can't walk away from this because it's just been great. And this went on for 3 years. Over the course of 6 different conventions, I had the same conversation with this guy. And every convention, I could see it. He was getting older. He was getting more tired. He would admit he's getting more tired, but he didn't want to walk away. So one January, he called me, and he said, I made a New Year's resolution. I'm going to sell. And I was excited because I know he's got a great business, right? So I called one of our local Sunbelt offices, and they went out and they listed the business. And the guy had great books. He had prepared for the end a little bit. He had great books, and he had these trends of increasing cash flow and increasing sales. I mean, he had a multi-million-dollar business. So we put it on the market, and we found a buyer. And the buyer was well-heeled. The buyer had an investor. The buyer had industry experience. The buyer, on their own nickel, just got on a plane and flew to Chicago and met with ACE executives. ACE executives loved him. They approved him right away. So this thing goes, the buyer makes an acceptable offer, and so we go into due diligence. So now we're about in May of this year, because again, we listed him in January. So we're about May, and we had a closing date at the end of June. And it was in the middle of May where the buyer came to the broker and said, I based all my, everything as far as my price and, this whole deal is based on his last, number of years of financials, his last 3 years of financials. But here we are, we're in May of a current year, and I haven't seen anything. Can I see, first quarter numbers or first trimester numbers? We said, oh, sure. So we called the seller and said, hey, can you run us a P&L and cash flow analysis for, the first 3 or 4 months? And the buyer or the seller did that. Unbeknownst to the broker, when this seller finally came to that cathartic decision of, I'm going to sell my business, he kind of checked out. He didn't come to work every day. He pulled back on some marketing programs that he stopped doing a bunch of little things that had made him so successful. And that first quarter, compared to the first quarter of the year before, showed a 20% decrease in cash flow and an 18% decrease in top line revenue. Okay? Now, at that point in time, the best thing that we could hope for was the buyer says, okay, I need to adjust my offer. What's the worst? That the buyer says, I'm out. And that's exactly what happened. And what the buyer said, and I'll never forget these words, the buyer said to us in a conference call was, I have no idea if the business has been harmed, irreparably harmed. So again, until you sit across the table and somebody gives you that check and you give them the keys, it's still your business up until that very last day. And it's extremely important that you sprint to the finish. Don't limp in. Limping in will cost you money, in your pocket on the profits, and limp in may cost you money on the sale price, and it may cost you a sale at all. Which, by the way, I will tell you, that Ace Hardware store ended up, we wrote out the listing term with him. We never got another offer on it, and I don't know whatever happened to that business, but we never sold it for him. So sprint to the finish. It's going to make a big difference from you from a financial standpoint. Selling business is good. Remember, each dollar that you can show to the SDE calculation is going to be multiplied to get your sales price. And look, your business is a stock, right? You want to sell when it's at a high point. If you can time it out where you're coming off, like I said, the 3 best years you've ever had. If you go to market then, you're going to maximize the value of your business, right? So you want to sell when the business is on a high. Consult with professionals. You'll notice on this part of the slide, guys, that I have accountants, lawyers, financial advisors, business brokers, tax attorneys. Of course, I'm jaded, I'm biased. I am one of those being a business broker. But if you incorporate these people into your sales process, you're going to have to write each one of them a check, okay? It's going to cost you some money. My point of bringing this up to you is this. If these people are good at what they do, if they know their business and they've done it before, they are going to end up earning you more money even after you pay them than if you didn't incorporate them into your plan. Okay? You guys know running a Sparkle Wash. That's what you do on a daily basis. Business brokers know how to sell businesses. Tax attorneys know how to take care of the allocation of the sales price to give you the best and lowest tax, mitigate taxes as best they can. Accountants and lawyers know the ins and outs of the deal. There's just so many reasons to consider using professionals. And I will tell you that, I can give you story after story of sellers who even, used a broker, but didn't decide not to hire a tax attorney or vice versa. And it ended up costing them more money than what it would have cost them to hire somebody. So again, at the end of the day, you guys have to make that decision. Nobody's going to make it for you. But if you hire people who have been there and done that and they're good at their job, they're gonna put more money in your pocket net than if you didn't hire them. So that's my pitch to to consider using professionals. And if you decide to use a business broker, we hope it's Sunbelt. As Michael said, we've had a good relationship with Sparkle Wash over the last 10 plus years. We've sold a few businesses for you guys. We are the largest business broker in the United States and in the world. We have 170 offices in North America, 150 in the U.S. We're the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, and here's why that's important to you guys. At the end of the day, getting you the right price and terms for your business really comes down to one thing, and that is having a pool of buyers that are going to be interested in your business. If you have somebody who approaches you and says, "Hey, I want to buy your business," and that one person knows that they're the only one negotiating with you, they're not going to come up to the table and offer you the best price and terms, guys. With us, we put you in a position of power because we have other buyers that are going to be either in the same queue or going to be there shortly. And so we're able to play them off a little bit and say, hey, listen, if you want this business, we got other people looking at it, you need to step up to the plate. And so we've been in business for 40 years. We're also a franchise ourselves. So we really understand the franchise resales process backwards and forwards. And and that's one of the reasons too that that Michael has allied Sparkle Wash with us and made that recommendation because we understand franchise resales, and having the 150 U.S. offices, we typically can put a local broker on each and every resale that we work with. So we have lots of different options. Traditional brokerage is our strength, and that's basically listing your business and doing all the work. But if you do have a buyer and you want to go down the path of trying to sell it on your own, we do also offer consulting services to help you get that done. Or if you maybe you're going to sell it to your kid or a nephew or a niece, and you just want a price on the business, we do valuation services as well. So we have lots of different ways in which we can help you sell your business. And again, we hope that at the bare minimum, when you get to the point when you're thinking about selling, what I hope for is just give me a call and just have a conversation. You can pick my brain. I'm here as the resource to you guys. I don't list a lot of businesses for sale myself. My role really is as kind of the national accounts guy, setting up relationships like we have with Sparkle Wash. So I'm a resource to you guys. I'm a resource for webinars like this, but I'm also a resource if you just got general questions. Call me, pick up the phone, give me a call. Trust me, we're not used car salesmen. You won't hear from me every 5 days going, hey, are you ready to sell? Ready to sell? You want to use Sunbelt? I'll answer your questions straightforward. I'll give you the honest answers. If you're interested in talking to a local broker, I'll make that introduction for you. If you're not, that's fine too. But I'm hoping that you take advantage of the resource. So my contact information is on the screen. I really appreciate you guys giving me the time today.